Hi, it's Ashley, and today I'm going to talk to you about the field class that we are in. So, I would like to talk first about what I thought about this class before I came to it. When I first heard field experience, I just thought it was where I went into the field and practiced my teaching. But now that I'm in the class, we're actually learning how to be a better teacher. What I learned since class was I came to class. I learned that we need teachers who could help develop kids to be avid learners, who are good at setting their own goals throughout observations. I found that we need teachers who help students to succeed regardless of their race, their ethnicity, and how literate they are, or whatever curriculum that they are studying. I learned 8 things that we need to look for in today's classroom. They are voice, choice, time for reflection, opportunities for innovation, critical thinkers, problem solvers and finders, self-assessment, and connected learning. The above tips I got from the article, 8 Things to Look For in Today's Classroom. I learned that just like we judge the value of diamonds, we also judge the quality of an equitable classroom by the 4 following ways. Counter-narrative, this connection will help the teacher and their aides to understand the negative narratives that persist around the intelligence, the beauty, and efficiency of the boys and girls of color. It is control continuum, where a lot of different kids are very different in their behavior, their culture, and intelligence, but they're still kids trying to learn. Communication quality can be broken into 4 sections: teacher to student, content-based building, content-based acquiring. And the content expertise is where the teacher or an expert build new things, new content and skills throughout a jagged and iterative process. I learned these things from the article, The 4 Components of an Equitable Classroom. At this point, I'd like to talk more about a definition about equity in the classroom. I learned that promoting equity is about educators choosing to embrace rather than shy away from unique backgrounds, identities, and experiences that their students bring to the classroom. I want to talk a little bit about 4 practices that help to promote equity. Promoting the act of calling in, it is the principle of rather than calling people out on what they don't know or where we disagree, educators should instead call in and face the issue head on, so the students can learn from and through their own differences. The second one is communicating classroom standards, which is where the educators take the responsibility to set the standards for a classroom. The third one is setting the tone for learning. This is where the educator starts the students off with activities and exercises, their readings, and discussion questions that deal with the difficult topics from the very beginning. The fourth one is analyzing the unique makeup of each class, where the educator takes the time to consider their backgrounds, their identities, and experiences that students in the class may bring to the classroom. I got these 4 practices from 4 Practices to Promote Equity in the Classroom. Here is a list of 10 challenges that I listed when we were studying to be an equitable classroom. 1. How do I create a wallboard for my class to share their frustrations to help them feel safe? 2. How do I use art and music to enrich the learning experiences? 3. How do we give students choices on assignments rather than just setting out their assignments for them? 4. What are the steps that I should use in setting up a time and place for 2 or more children when they're beginning to squabble? And at what time do I contact their parents? 5. How do I make them comfortable in talking about times when they are feeling scared, confused, or even alone? 6. How do I ask my students after being in my class what I can do to be safe? 7. Check my listening skills. Have my students question me on the things that they shared with me just to see if I've listened. 8. Do a reality check to see if I'm making my classroom safe to where they are able to talk about their life. 9. Help me to have the stability to admit that I do not have all of the answers. And lastly, ask the students which of their work they would like displayed on their walls to help them realize that this part of their room is also theirs and not just my domain. And then ask them if they want to display their quizzes, their math work, their writings, their artwork, or any other samples of their very own work. I want to talk a little bit about the equity tools. And I thought we should first understand the definition for it. Equity tool is designed to combine considerations of racial equity in the programs, budgets, the policies, and practices. I just want to mention a few of the tools that we as teachers need to be practicing. Using body language, gestures, and expressions to convey a message that all of the students' questions and opinions are important. Ensure bulletin boards, instructional materials, and displays and other visuals in the classroom. Reflect the racial, the ethnic, and cultural backgrounds represented by your students. Acknowledging all students' comments, responses, or questions and contributions. Provide the students with the criteria and standards for their successful task operations, and ask higher order questions equitably of all of the students. There are many more tools for teachers to use while teaching a classroom, but I got this information off of the Equitable Classroom Practices Observation Checklist that was adapted from a resource for Equitable Classroom Practice 2010. One of the things I've learned from this class is that when you base your classroom decisions on research and on data created from practice in your classroom, you'll find that they will listen to you more. I got this information from Miners We Got This book on page 62. One of the most valuable things that I've learned, which is hard for me, is saying the word no. As teachers, our no's must be about potential paths or outcomes that do not meet the needs of our children. I got this from the Miners We Got This book on page 66. One thing that I learned was from a very interesting podcast about multicultural education and social justice, where I learned that teachers tend to favor the white students. This podcast showed that we as teachers need to break down the attitudes that our students are bringing from their homes into our classroom, that being white, they are better than the black students. Multicultural literacy is necessary literature, and what we've been doing is not enough. This podcast pointed out that everyone's forefathers came from some other country, so that everyone has some kind of culture. I got this information from the podcast Why White Students Need Multicultural, Cultural, and Social Justice Education podcast, and also from week 6 discussion posts. One last thing I would like to share is probably one of the hardest things for me is I need to listen. I need to remember that I am a detective when I am listening to my own students. In every conversation, I need to remember that listening is very important because everyone has some skills and knowledge. I need to remember that nobody is a good listener all the time. And I need to set boundaries so that I know when I've heard enough. By improving my listening power, it will help me do something good for the people I care about and connect me to more people that I want to know. One more thing I want to talk about listening is by being a good listener to my students. I will be able to detect if there's a problem in their everyday life and help them to get connections for them. I got this information off the assignments for checking your listening. Something that I wish we'd covered more is that I wish we learned more about the virtual learning and how to cope with it as future educators and how to check in with our very own students. What I will take home and apply is every student is a special person and deserves the best, and I would know that every student was unique in their very own way, and give them time to show it in the classroom and practice what we learned about wait time. Waiting 3 to 5 seconds to consider the students' responses before affirming and correcting them. Thank you.